What is going on, everyone? Trust the Buzz here. If you're new to the channel, I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. If you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Mark Williams. And yes, he has not played. But the reason I want to talk about Mark Williams is because one thing I've noticed throughout preseason, and I've been actually ultimately happy with what I've seen from preseason, and I'm going to talk about that once we have the last preseason game. I'll probably do a video on just my thoughts on preseason as a whole. But one thing I want to talk about that I've seen during preseason is just our big man rotation, and it's not good. I say this, maybe it's not good. It's not sustainable, and by that I mean we've seen what it's like having Nick Richards as your starting center for a long period of time. And then the other option is really Grant Williams or Taj Gibson. Now, granted, those are not good options for two completely different reasons, but still not good reasons nonetheless. And I think it's time for us to start wondering what's going on with Mark. Now, even if he goes on to just start first game of the season, we just need to look. I think the team just needs to be careful and just monitor the situation, because Mark Williams missed all of last season with a back injury. His back gets healed, and now he has a foot injury, and now he doesn't have the boot. But with a bad back, ultimately coming off a bad foot at 7 feet, where's your ceiling? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, what can you do next? And I don't know if that's much. I don't know how much better. And I'm saying this completely in the dark. We could find out tomorrow or whenever I release this video that everything's fine, he's perfectly healthy, let's roll. But as of right now, without knowing everything, and really truly only Mark knows about everything. Even the doctors may not know everything. Only Mark knows kind of where he's at. Without knowing everything, I'm just nervous. And not nervous as in I think the season's derailed. Not nervous, maybe. Not nervous in the sense of this team's not good. Not nervous as in this team's going to be held back. It's not going to be held back for the lack of Mark Williams, but it may be held back for the lack of a center, because we only have one if Mark is out. And if Mark is healthy, honestly, only unless Mark can jump back like how LaMelo does when he comes back from injury, we have 1.5 centers. And I just don't think that's going to cut it in the NBA. We saw that Jericho Sims and Precious Achua, who's 6'8", 6'9", just dominated us on the glass. And we had Nick Richards, who only had 8 rebounds. And Nick Richards this is crazy to say, because he's had games where he's had like 20 rebounds. He's had games where he's had like 15 rebounds. But he's not like a board hunter. He normally gets it just because of his natural size and his natural physicality, but he's not like necessarily someone that's going to go out there and just eat up boards. That's just not what he does, and that's fine. Like I've came around on Nick Richards. I think he's better than I've given him credit for, even though I still see a lot of flaws in his game. I just don't think if you're serious about making the playoffs, he cannot be. We've seen it, and it does not work. He cannot be your starting center. And I'm not even sure if maybe so healthy Mark Williams could be your starting center. Like I said, this is just being extremely negative. I know. I'm not trying to be negative before the season. I hope Mark comes back healthy. I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope we go back and look at this video like, wow, he was running his mouth too much. But I'm just trying to be as completely transparent as possible. And that is just, it makes me nervous for the future. Now I think this is a good draft class to probably get another center if need to. And I haven't looked at the free agency class, so maybe I'll look at that and see. But it's just, we've kind of been asking for a third center for a while, and we've been asking like, okay, maybe get one to stretch the floor, because Mark and Nick kind of do the same thing. But we may just need a third center that does the exact same thing. We've seen how sometimes to get around Nick Richards not being able to shoot, there's certain sets that Charles Lee likes to run where Nick Richards is still able to kind of like help on offense without being a threat to shoot. And I think that's been very beneficial for guys like LaMelo and Brandon Miller to kind of play off that. But with that being done, I think that allows us to maybe get a third center that maybe not, maybe does the same things as those other two guys, but we need something, because I just, the way we got outboarded by, like I said, Precious Achua, who's 6'8", and Jericho Sims, who I think is a tremendous. I wanted Jericho Sims if we were going to do a trade with the Knicks, but I see why we didn't get him. Like I see, he probably just wasn't available. And if I'm the Knicks, I would want something in, like, I would want a real return for Jericho Sims, not just dump him because, hey, you took on some salary for me, or took on some players for me. So I can see why, they didn't necessarily give us Jericho Sims, but it's just going to be ugly. And I think that, we've always had a trouble. We've always had trouble, going against guys like Joel Embiid, Jokic. And while they're obviously, top 5 NBA players currently, maybe top 10, it just depends how you feel. Those type of guys, as far as that build, are going to dominate us every time. We see it every time. We cannot keep up with those guys, even with Mark Williams. And granted, it was before, it was like, well, he's young, and but now it's like 2 years has passed, and we're in year 3, and in terms of games played, he's still a rookie. And I say that all the time, but it's true. He hasn't played 82 games yet. And it just makes me nervous for the future. Is this replaceable? Yes, it's because it's not like we were getting much from the position anyway, so it's not like we're really missing much, because it's not like he's done it for an extended period of time, or the timing of when he's been as good as I think he is or can be. It's not like that was really meaningful, because he did it at the beginning of last year, and then he did it towards the end of 2 years of his rookie year. But at that point, the season was over. In the beginning of last year, we were kind of trying to catch our bearings. Didn't have Miles for the first 10 games. LaMelo's come back from injury. Brandon Miller's a rookie. We still have I almost said Trey Mann. We don't have Trey Mann. We don't have Grant Williams. We have Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, so on and so forth. Steve Clifford's still the coach. So while he has been good for us, it just hasn't been meaningful. Now, granted, the last 2 seasons have been that meaningful, but still, I just really want to know what your thoughts are. If I'm trying to be as transparent as possible, I think Mark Williams has a spot on this team. I think that when healthy, I think he can be an incredible center for us, incredible big for us, and I think he allows us to maybe experiment and get a big that can stretch the floor. But if I'm being completely honest about his injuries, that's where I get a little. I'm not really worried about his ability. It's worried about his injuries and how they're going to impact him. Almost the two worst injuries you can have as a big is back and like foot, ankle area, and he's had both back to back. And while we're seeing without the boot and seeing him smiling and all these things and out there, like I said, he can start game 1 and maybe everything looks different, but it's just something you have to monitor. For me, I don't think this is the year where you're really too worried. Like I don't think the Hornets have to worry about really making a trade. I mean, if they really, really are like really close to making the playoffs or play in even, I think it'll be good for the team to just go ahead and try to make it. Then maybe get like somebody, buy low on somebody just so you have that reassurance going into the playoff series or going into the play-in. But ultimately, I think you can wait. So if Mark Williams is just not panning out, it's not the end of the world. I think what really matters here is Melo, Brandon Miller, Trey Mann, Grant Williams, Miles Bridges, of course. That's kind of where your focus is. You definitely want Mark Williams to be a part of that, but he can be replaced. But yeah, just let me know what your thoughts are. I hope that he's healthy, because then all of this goes away. But I'm just really concerned as a fan because, like I said, those are the 2 worst injuries you can have as a big. And even then, he comes back. What does that recovery period look like? Because he just doesn't. He doesn't have. I'll put it like this. LeBron James could go through an injury, right? Miss months. He could. I'm not saying he will. I hope not. But he can miss months. But he has so many years of experience to kind of fall back on. So when he's back on the court, he just has that like experience and knowledge of the game to fall back on to play. Like just the repetition of what it's like playing in NBA games. While Mark Williams has played like 50-ish, that's still not enough to really like. You're still trying to find yourself as an NBA player, and then now you have LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and guys you've been practicing with, but still like Grant Williams, Trey Mann, Micic, Seth Curry. Like you have a bunch of guys. Like the roster's completely changed around you. The coach staff is completely changed around you. The culture has changed completely around you, and you still haven't been able to really be on the floor for all of it. And that's just kind of what makes me nervous is just that all that with a back and foot injury back to back. How does he find himself going forward? It's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but is it going to be enough? Because now, at the end of the season, we're at year 3, and the first year he didn't play until the second half of the season. Second year he got hurt. Third year, a majority of the time it could be him trying to find himself. His extension is due soon, you know what I mean? So, and they don't necessarily have to extend him to this crazy rookie max extension, but still, they would have to extend him at some capacity, and that's just kind of where I'm nervous about. That's something to worry about down the road, but I did just want to talk about it. It was just on my mind. But anyway, let me know what you think. I really want to know what others think. Like I said, this isn't the bash Mark. This isn't to say Mark stinks or anything like that. I'm just being completely transparent and saying I'm just nervous because I just don't think it's going to be as easy as we're hoping for someone to come back from a back and foot injury, and then also kind of play in the pace that we like to play. Like LaMelo likes to play, like Brandon likes to play, like Miles likes to play, and even Charles Lee likes to play. That's kind of where I'm a little iffy, and I just want to know. Like, you can easily tell me in the comments, like, this is how I see this going, and I can be, okay, I could buy into that. It's just right now I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I'm just seeing more bad outcomes than good. But I'm just really hoping that at the end of the day, all of this was precautionary and that he's healthy.